And never again is now.
Never.
So since we're segueing, and God, there's so much stuff I can get to this. You talk a lot. I know. You talk a lot.
There's
you
so
know
much
that
good stuff to talk
we would
about.
cover much more stuff if you didn't talk so much.
I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
Speaking of shutting up, so Bill Maher, is on The View last week, right? Well, I mean, it takes someone like Bill Maher to get those women to, shut their mouths from time to time. But, I think it was Sunny Hostin, I forget which one, was trying to call him out on wokeness and this. But he put out the most cogent argument in simplistic terms that the viewership can digest. And that was irrefutable. So if we have that clip, here's the clip of Bill Maher talking with the ladies of The View on the war in the Middle East. Roll them, Smokey.
All right, let me get the video up here. Hold on.
A subpoena for Bibi Netanyahu?
Well, that's ridiculous, but it's a war.
Why?
It's a war because it's a war, and they were attacked, and they're defending themselves. Now, this is a war. Do you think Hamas needs to be destroyed? This is the question.
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
So how can we get out with a ceasefire?
All right. So Hamas needs to be destroyed because they are a terrorist organization who say openly that they want to commit genocide on the Jewish people, on the state of Israel. That's what from the river to the sea means, okay? And they say it very openly. They said, we did this attack. They've attacked Israel 5 times. They've started 5 wars since they were given that land back. They could have chosen to turn that place into any place they wanted to, and they took a lot of money that they took from the international community, and they spent it on bombs and guns and building tunnels. So if they need to be destroyed, how do we do that? It's a war. I don't know how to do that, and you don't know how to do that. I assume the Israeli Of course, everybody is, but that's what happens in a war. Here's a way to stop that. Stop attacking Israel.
And stop calling for the annihilation of Israel and all the Jews. They're calling for the annihilation of the Jews.
It's very simple. It's very straightforward. And the fact that we need Bill effing Maher to be the voice of reason.
Look, have I taught you nothing? Real politic. An enemy of my enemy is my friend. Look, Strom Thurmond, the conservative senator from South Carolina, Ted Kennedy, the liberal, the Prince of Darkness to conservatives, could get together on things when they agreed and they disagreed. Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan. You work with people who agree with you on the issue, but when you're ideologically divided that you're good or you're good and they're evil, how do you come together to forge compromise on the issues you agree on? Right?
You don't.
So,
right?
so Bill Maher, well, because the woke, the leadership or the high priests of wokeism, as I like to call them, or high priestesses mostly of wokeism, have successfully demagogued, demonized, and divided everyone, which is the 3 Ds you hear me talk about, so that we're now so polarized that you can't even find common ground on the issues we agree on, which on the Israel issue, right, it's really simple. If Hamas lays down their arms, there would be no war. And if Israel lays down their arms, there'd be no Israel. Until Israel didn't start the war.
Yep.
Hamas did. Israel's charter doesn't call for the extermination of the Palestinian people. Hamas's charter does. And by the way, don't quote me on the year, but I want to say it was 2004, or no, it might have been 2006 or 8 that Israel pulled out of Gaza, and they've had self-rule.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like 14 or 18 years. I don't really remember, but
yes,
but it's just too much stuff going in my head. But again, you juxtapose that to now you have 2 international courts. The UN court has just called for Israel to halt its military operation. So let me see if I got this right. Israel is attacked, and now you have the world body of the United Nations court saying that Israel has to stop its attack on Gaza, even though, so denying Israel the right of self-defense, because as Bill Maher points out, right, should Hamas be destroyed? If your answer is no, my next question is why. And if your answer is yes, then why isn't Israel afforded the opportunity as a country to defend itself? And some of that requires offensive operations in a defensive context in terms of why you got into this to begin with. It's right.
Here's the thing, Robert. Explain to me why the UN has any credibility left when they are trying to remove laws against child pornography and pedophilia around the world. Okay. That organization, once they got busted for having their people trafficking people and then calling for, for child brides and all that kind of stuff, like, you've lost all your credibility, United Nations.
Well, wait a minute.
Don't care what you say.
Wait a minute.
I mean, tell me why. Explain to me why they have any credibility.
So I think I can explain this fairly easily. Okay. Now, and in all truth, we should do an entire show on the United Nations, both the good and the bad, right? But the United Nations, like any government, does not have legitimacy in abstract. It only has legitimacy based on who are the people that are members or who participate in the system. You have to remember that the United Nations, and Lord knows I am not defending the United Nations. I think that it is an organization who is how do I say this nicely? It has become corrupt, but.
Oh yeah, I mean, China.
But there's a lot of oxymorons here. But at the end of the day, the United Nations is made up of countries that do not share the same values that a lot of the Western countries, led by the United States, do. So when you bring in these other countries that don't share your values, how do you expect them to, lack of a better term, toe the line or adopt those policies that are in contradiction to their policies? For instance, can we just talk about women's rights? So in any Muslim country, women do not have rights, or they have varying degrees of rights, or, they can't be out without a man. They have to wear a burqa or a covering. They can't run for office. They can't get educated. So on that alone,
can't have a job,
those countries who believe that to be morally correct, and I'm giving them a wide berth here, that you bring them into a international organization, do you think that they're going to check their culture and their morals at the door?
No, they're not going to stop thinking it's okay to marry 10-year-old girls or
taking the potential corruption issue out of this, which is a massive issue, right? Let's just talk about the cultural mosaic that makes up the United Nations. These countries are not, and please understand, I am very critical of the United Nations. I think it has outlived its usefulness. Don't forget, we went from the League of Nations to the United Nations. I think it's time for, Western nations something, right? I mean, whatever. But let's find people who share our values and let's form an organization with them. But how can you look?
Yes.
Leopards don't change their spots, right? Walks like a duck, talks like a duck's usually a duck. All those old sayings applies to the United Nations, which is these countries that have these values are not going to change their values just because they're part of an international organization, peace organization, and they are still going to pursue their own self-interest.
Which also, and some of that is going to be destroying Israel.
You think?
So those same countries are obviously going to vote against Israel.
Right.
So stupid. Again, I like the way you said it's outlived its usefulness.
I am not arguing that there should not be some sort of world body, but point to me a world body, whether it's the World Trade Organization or the World Economic Forum or the United Nations or the, keep going. How many international organizations do you want me to cite? Find one of them that does not have anti-Western or anti-U.S. values at its core. Name one. I defy you to name one.
I can't.
So can we bring it back to this country for a second? There's a couple other things that as I'm looking at my list that I want to go over.
Yep.
And one of them is, I mean, let's go back to the get Trump at any cost, right? So Orange Man is bad.
Orange Man bad.
I know that everyone is fixated on the Alvin Bragg, New York City, the trial in New York about overstating his values and Stormy Daniels, and it's salacious because it involves sex and pornography. I get that. And then there's the case down in Georgia, Fannie Willis also falling apart, right? That was the one that they were going to get him. Yep. But the one I want to focus on is the classified documents case that Jack Smith has brought at a federal level. So the argument on the case was that Trump was illegally keeping classified documents that he had no right to keep, and that it was and it was denying the government to keep these copies of the documents because they didn't have them. And Trump's argument was, I wanted these for my presidential library, which, by the way, is another question. Why does everyone else have really quickly put up a presidential library, but Trump hasn't? I wonder if it's all these courts keeping him busy and no one wants a Trump library on the other side. But here's the real issue. Another reason to keep him busy, right? But here's the real question. So wait, let me find it. So there was an Obama era edict. It turns out, and I'm going to find this paperwork because you know how I love to have paperwork here, who basically says that the Obama administration already had copies of these documents in hand. Right? Hang on, we're going to find this. Come on. Yeah, hang on. You think I'm crazy, but it's somewhere in here. The Obama administration. There we go. So it's been revealed that the Obama era program cast doubt on the reasons for the Trump raid. So it turns out that the Department of Defense memo was just unearthed under a FOIA request, that the federal government already had the original copies of the documents that they seized at Mar-a-Lago. It is I want you to because number one, you don't hang out with me enough. Number two, you don't look at the nooks and crannies of news. People just look at the first 5 minutes of news,
clearly,
and they miss all the stuff that's at the bottom. So this is called, all the good juice. This is called the Presidential Information Technology Community, PITC. It includes representatives from federal agencies, Department of Defense, Homeland Security. It was an Obama era executive order, right? Quote, a newly unearthed memo from Obama administration, Department of Defense confirmed that government had originals of the alleged classified documents involved in Special Counsel Jack Smith's prosecution of President Trump. So wait a minute. So and it goes on, by the way, to say that this was hatched in the early days of the Biden administration, where they just said, let's go after him for classified documents. Right. And we'll pretend we don't have them. But understand, they were also under orders to use all levels of force. Right. They raid Mar-a-Lago, use deadly force if necessary to go get documents that the government supposedly now already had. So
this is, I'm telling you, if this is
how about girls?
Guys, ladies and gentlemen, oh my God. If this is not evidence of the corruption of our government, and I mean, I know coup isn't the right word here, but I can't help but feel like, look, out there in the audience, okay? If you do not understand by now that the government is not for you,
wait a minute. Wait.
And in fact, will go out of its way to keep you from electing the person that you want to run the country.
Look, there are still good people in government, right? The problem is, it's sort of like arguing, when you go against an agency, the FBI is corrupt, and I'm not saying they are, but it's the leadership, right? The rank and file are totally different. There are people. I mean, look, there's no question that during the Obama years and the Biden years, that the federal bureaucracy has now been seeded, SEEDED, like you seed the ground with plants, with people who are ideologically in line with this progressive woke mentality. And that's part of the problem. And that's why you get these knucklehead council members, even in the state level. Right. And there are plenty of examples of that. The State Department is infested with pro-Israel, anti-Semitic, pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas people. That is the unspoken truth that anybody who knows Washington, D.C. knows that, right? But there are still good people in government. Yeah. So the problem comes down to not that don't trust the government. I agree that it's become more problematic lately. It's what do you do to recenter and take government back to the functions that it was supposed to do, right? And when you can go after a former president in no pun intended or pun clearly intended, trumped up charges in several venues, right? New York, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., right? If you can do that, and none of these hold any water. Now, look, is Trump an angel? Probably not. I don't think anybody who runs for president is pure as the driven snow, and I'm not sure I want someone who's pure as the driven snow to be president, because you got to make some ugly decisions. So, you know, it just, I sit here. Can we end this, though, on Joe Biden? I do want to end this on Biden.
All right,
Joe Biden in the football. You didn't see where Joe Biden was at West Point? He was making a speech, and he said that the reason he didn't get into the Naval Academy. I'm sorry, he was at the Naval Academy. No, West Point. Biden repeated story. Yeah, he was appointed to U.S. Naval Academy and wanted to play football, but his path was blocked because Roger Staubach was there. And the reason I take offense at that is two things. Number one, Roger Staubach was one of my childhood idols as Dallas Cowboy quarterback. Served in Vietnam, came back, but when you start talking about football, and Joe Biden was, you know, this great football player apparently, and they couldn't get in, but he got in, but didn't take it. Doesn't it make you wonder about the real football he's carrying? You know what the football is, right? The football is the reference to the codes to the nuclear devices. If you're going to launch nuclear weapons, you need the football, and he always has someone with him who's carrying the football. So, I'm not concerned that Joe Biden lied yet again about getting into the Naval Academy to play football because Roger Staubach was there. I am concerned that you have some senile guy who is our leader. You know, he's my president. Don't have to like him, but he's my president, is carrying the nuclear football. Just thought I'd put that out there. And they're all talking about, oh, well, you know, and the years don't line up. 61 versus 65. It's like, you know, no, wait a minute.
His whole life is a plagiarism at this point.
You know what?
He doesn't even
I used to say I wanted to come back in my life as one of my children. I think I want to come back in my next life as the life that Joe Biden thinks he led. Because, man.
It's very Benjamin Button.
Right. I want to come back as that guy. I mean, because he has like scaled Mount Everest in like a single bound, and he is faster than a speeding bullet. Oh, that's Superman. I'm sorry, but I get confused when I hear all the Biden stories because I'm thinking like I'm looking at Clark Kent. Where's Superman? I want to be that guy.
Well, speaking of where's Superman, where are we going to be in a week from now? Right back here with you guys having an awesome show. But for today, we got to wrap it up, y'all. All right. So make sure, like, share, and subscribe. If you've watched this long, we thank you very much. And if you liked it, give us a like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like it, thanks for watching and giving us some of your attention.
And if you need to reach me, Robert at coalition4america.com or at RB Chernin. Like us, don't like us, I can take the criticism. Bring it on.
And no after hours today, you guys. So make sure you come back next week for more. And hopefully we're going to cover the nonsense.
There is so much stuff we didn't cover today. I feel so bad.
All
but
right, see you next week.
We'll cover more next week, I promise.
Oh, my God. You just wait. You just wait.